All right, all right. So we're having our first live interview today. Again, I'm Loop. As many of you know, I've been doing investment research and managing portfolios of different strategies for institutional investors in the traditional finance space for years. Today, we have our first seasoned guest, a self-made multi-billionaire. A self-made multi-millionaire, not there yet. A savvy investor in crypto and DeFi space, my friend Matt. He's a great guy, a good friend, and also my mentor in the crypto space. Welcome.
Hey, great. Thanks for inviting me on. It's good to be here. And yeah, we're working towards that B status.
All right, that's the goal. That's the goal. So for wordy words, your voice sounds very sexy over the mic. Did you got a new one? Do you have a what's the brand? Because I want to have that. I want to have that sexy feeling.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's the Blue Yeti. Definitely premier microphone. Pick it up.
Nice. Nice, nice. All right. So the reason I want to invite Matt here, just to give you guys some context, is that these days I'm seeing an increasing desire and openness to seek for alternative and strategical allocation among institutional clients in this new zero interest rate paradigm. Me, I personally think that crypto could be a great strategical option as number one. It offers great diversification to an equity portfolio with nominal bound yielding nothing today. Number two, as I mentioned in my previous videos, I think crypto is a good hedge on inflation, which is definitely one of the top risks on every investor minds today. And number three, there are also good opportunities for uncorrelated new alpha in the crypto space. For example, I've known Matt for quite some time. I think the massive alphas he has been generating mostly have nothing to do with what's going on in the traditional finance world.
I would definitely say so.
All right. So that's good. That's my view. So Matt, first question for you. What is your current view on the crypto and DeFi space, especially in light of the recent news of China ban?
Yeah. So as it stands right now, I would say by and large, crypto and in a more broader sense, DeFi, as it's kind of really risen predominantly in 2020 as like its like main catalyst year. It's really maturing. The markets are getting a lot more mature. They're kind of like still going through their initial growth phase, but it's becoming it's reached the point where basically the traditional financial world can no longer ignore it, and they're recognizing that they made a mistake ignoring Bitcoin at first. It's been 12 years since it launched now, and it's creating a entire new asset class and many different markets around it as well. And so one of the things we see though is that one of the initial reasons why people were kind of very skeptical is because it had a very negative perception behind it in regards to what it was actually trying to function as, right? So Bitcoin primarily it went through kind of like a few different paradigm shifts in what how people understood it. And so starting
Yep.
off, it was viewed as being, really only for illicit means, criminals were transacting in it. And then it kind of started to pick up a narrative of becoming, a new digital currency people can transact with. It's something that's gonna supplant the US dollar.
The
It'll be the new
digital
medium of
gold.
exchange. Exactly. Yeah. That's now the third paradigm shift we're seeing where it's becoming that store of value where, that's where the main narrative of the inflation hedge is coming in. It's here to combat fiat currencies and kind of the rampant quantitative easing we've been seeing occur.
Yeah, our best friend Ray Dalio is having a little allocation there to preserve his wealth.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of original players kind of take notice of this. I mean, there was the seminal work that people view it as now when Paul Tudor Jones basically released his investment thesis on Bitcoin for its inflation hedge, and then that's really what kind of led to a lot of people being like, oh, okay, there's some big boys are basically taking notice now. We got to basically crowd the trade as well because we just can't ignore it anymore now.
Yep. What about DeFi?
Yeah, so DeFi, I view it as the continued escalation and progression of really what we've been observing, for a while now in regards to the digitization of different mediums of information. And so when we originally started off, when the internet came about, we were able to basically transfer information a lot more easily. And then we started to look at the different mediums of how we contain information, and we can also digitize that. And so we started, with the simple recording of information, whether it be, just text from books, maybe different manuscripts, stuff like that. We moved into mathematics, we moved into music, images, video. And now I think the best way to understand what cryptocurrency is doing, especially with DeFi, is that we're looking at digitizing value now.
So what about
Mm-hmm.
the China ban?
Yeah, so the recent China ban on crypto, it shows the importance of a system like DeFi and the value it can accrue because of those exact type of actions that centralized entities can basically put out. And so initially, I see there being a surge of capital flight from a lot of the centralized entities like the exchanges that a lot of, Chinese citizens were using and housing their crypto for their custodial services.
Hmm.
And they're gonna initially, fly into DeFi from that. Now, this is not going to be something that is going to last forever because eventually the capital flows will be dwindling from there. But what is important to recognize in the space is that majority of the new capital inflows have been occurring from more traditional institutional investors and asset allocators in the Western markets.
Yep. So great. That makes sense to me. And it sounds like, I mean, I personally do agree that DeFi progression is an inevitable trend with or without China's endorsement at the moment. Eventually, the will, if if you reach the critical mass. Again, we mentioned a lot about DeFi. I don't want to make this interview another intro video to DeFi. So if you want to learn more about DeFi, please watch the video pasted in the description below. Okay, Matt, given what you just described, and just trying to picture all the shifts, the involvements you just referred to, how will they play out on a more granular level going forward from the lens of the traditional finance world? Do you have a rough sense of the breakdown of the existing and the incoming capitals into the space? What the major buyers, what the major players these days?
Yeah, so as mentioned before, a lot of the new money coming in are from Western-based money managers. Originally, the space was fueled by money made predominantly from the original Bitcoin holders and the miners,
Just like
and
yourself.
exactly, and a lot of the early retail adopters as well that were looking for alternative investments, primarily because they viewed that they may have missed the boat on Bitcoin, and so that would be like where Ethereum comes into play for a lot of that. And so
Mhm.
ever since the 2017 run we had, we've been seeing an ever increasing amount of participation from traditional financial players. Anywhere from Fidelity doing their custodial services to a lot of the leading Silicon Valley VCs like A16Z raising multi-billion-dollar funds to the world's largest asset manager like BlackRock. They've recently been gaining a lot of different exposure through their funds like the Global Allocation Fund, Strategic Income Opportunities Funds, and even actually having a stake in MicroStrategy where they have indirect exposure to Bitcoin that they hold on their balance sheet.
I see, I
And
see.
yeah, so a lot of those things, it's just really there's been a major evolution, even to the point where a lot of the original mining pools for Bitcoin miners now they're predominantly raising equity so they can continue their operations because they want to keep holding on to the Bitcoin that they're mining.
So they basically themselves turn into like a financial institutions.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like this. I would call it the institutionalization momentum is already starting, which is definitely exciting in my opinion. Just based on your estimation or guesstimation, is it correct to say that retail money is still the majority, or like the classically defined retail money is still the majority in the current capital pool in the crypto space, or at least in DeFi, but the financial institutions are already taking a bigger part in the new capital inflows and new capital formations.
Yeah, I'd say it's roughly right. I would say in regard to Bitcoin, institutional money is definitely the dominant force there now. But regarding the DeFi, we see it more. It's a little bit more evenly split in the sense that what's really happening now is that a lot of venture capital money is flooding into DeFi to kind of like start the basis of a lot of these projects, and then what really carries the growth then from there is the retail participation.
I see, I see. But also, right, I agree with there was a point on Bitcoin. It's definitely a beast of its own kind.
Yes, definitely, definitely. It's really grown so massive to the point where I mean, even just from like a liquidity perspective, it's really you can't ignore it now if you want to be involved in the digital space, especially as a institutional money manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a good thing to also note is that even though it has been 12 years since Bitcoin started and it created this new asset class, it's creating a network effect that's been gaining users at a faster rate than the internet did, and with that comes a lot of opportunities. But it also creates a very unstable environment as the market grows. There's going to be a lot of competition that arises, a lot of people trying to build better systems, better networks, better protocols. As I alluded to before, there was the dot-com bubble. We saw kind of the same thing happening where a lot of the projects or the protocols that exist today in crypto, will they really stand the test of time?
It's the
Most of them
hypes.
won't. Yeah, a
Just
lot
the
of them are
hypes.
just hyped up. There's a lot of speculative premiums attached to them. And but even with all of that, some of them serve as important lessons in protocol design. Others, they are just the hype kind of blatant cash grabs. And then a very select few, they'll be the ones that become basically DeFi natives. And we can see them as basically, or I should say, we really see this the most clearly in the different layer ones that are out there. So layer one being basically like the initial smart contract platform that kind of fuels the entire network, has its native currency like Ethereum, Cardano, Ripple, all of those. And so we see a lot of competition in trying to build a very efficient, scalable, secure layer one that can facilitate all these decentralized applications. And there's many that are good at what they do. There's many that
Can
have
you
been
give us a
successful.
few examples on those L1s?
Oh yeah, for sure. So like I already mentioned before with Ethereum, there's also Solana, Cardano, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain. A lot of them you'll see they're going to be EVM compatible, so they're going to be based on the same design as Ethereum. And then other ones take their own approach, and they all have their own pros and cons to them. And so we really just need to see who's going to come out ahead. It's hard to tell right now because there's a lot of building that's happening.
So what's the current sort of, who's the winner? What's your view in terms of like from an investor perspective? Who's like, just from the equity perspective, like to talk about fundamentals, who has good fundamentals, who has only a story. Can you share some perspectives there?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the clear winner, and mostly because they're the first, is Ethereum. They were kind of the initial smart contract platform. Bitcoin originally was going to have the ability to actually have smart contracts. It was taken out. Ethereum filled that void. They have the first mover advantage. Ethereum's not very good at scaling though. So what you're seeing a lot happen now in regards to other layer ones that are competing with Ethereum, like Solana, Avalanche, Terra, Luna. Those are all really focused on scaling. So scaling is the most important factor for them because they need a high throughput to handle all these transactions on chain.
I agree. How about a very hyped one, Cardano?
Cardano is a massive GG Nori.
Okay, GG as in, if you don't play games, what Matt is saying is pretty much massively overvalued. It's hyped up.
Massively overvalued. They failed to even have it be the case where their blockchain could handle more than a single transaction per block. The way it looks now is you're gonna most likely see them have to completely redesign the entire network, and I would be concerned that there's gonna be a good deal of capital flight from the initial investor base there.
I see. So all right, so there will be a lot of movements that within the crypto space. Really, so thank you for the insights on the L1s. But just like myself, I think a lot of loose subscribers, a lot of our friends, they love juicy stuff. So let's now move on to the more juicy stuff. Like, can you point to us a few tokens with good fundamentals, use cases, just like anything fundamentally good in the DeFi space you want to recommend the retail investors to buy at the moment?
Most definitely, yeah. So a lot of the ones I think people will be really excited to look into. Starting off, we'll go with Olympus Dow. Ticker OHM, Ohm. Yep, the Ohmies, very strong community. They're striving to become a DeFi reserve currency. You can kind of view them as being like the DeFi central bank. And so, in addition to that, though, they're also working on solving what is a very important kind of problem to really nip in the bud in DeFi, which is liquidity. And so, they had a model with bonds that were very effective at creating their own protocol-owned liquidity instead of having to rely on liquidity provisions from basically yield farmers. So very important. Definitely keep your eyes on that one. Another similar project in regard to focusing on solving DeFi liquidity issues is from Tokamak, which you can view kind of like as Ohm solving liquidity problems from an internal manner. Tokamak is more about solving it externally, right? So they're offering a solution to pool to, which would be pooling liquidity into AMMs for specific projects through their own kind of like incentivized reactor model that'll take a crowdsourcing approach to it and keeping it kind of set up there. Moving on from there, I think what's really important too is to look at the underlying infrastructure that actually fuels a lot of this innovation. And so one that really catches my attention there would be SushiSwap. SushiSwap, it kind of gets a lot of flack because it was originally a fork of Uniswap, but they've managed to.
What is a fork?
A fork is where basically you can, because a lot of the code is open source, so anybody could just they could just go to the GitHub and fork it, and they have the code base, and then they spin up their own. So SushiSwap was originally a fork of Uniswap, But
which
what
I still
actually,
use these days.
yes,
bad.
exactly. Yeah, and then what wound up happening was that they basically outbuilt Uniswap. You know, even though they started off as just a fork, they have an extremely talented team there. They are master innovators in the DeFi space, and they just constantly ship new products, just constantly building. Very
Yeah.
strong community as well.
One of our best friend, and you probably know the person who should be remain nameless here, is that the good artists borrow, great artists steal, something like that. So they're the great artists in this case.
Exactly. They are the great artists of DeFi, the master chefs, if you will.
Nice. Anything else?
Yeah, there's one more I think is very important, and that's to look at AP.1. You know, as crypto is largely based on speculation and the infrastructure that exists to support that speculation, I think it's definitely worth checking out AP.1 because they are seeking to tokenize future yield and to expand the actual strategies available to yield farmers out there. If there's one thing that I think will not be going anywhere in crypto, it's that yield farming element in the sense that
Speculation.
the speculation that exists at the base level, there's a high demand for people to basically be able to leverage and borrow against their assets, and it's going to definitely make the market in that regard a lot more efficient. AP1 is definitely one to watch out for.
So just want to say that on the point of Ohm, great. They're going to be the central bank in the DeFi space. Not only that, it's a great name by Diablo standards for those of you who know what I'm talking about. Also, I just want to say, you know, on the speculation point, I heard the great things about AP1. Just, you know, to translate a little bit, I know they're trying to just recreate the future contracts in the DeFi space. Also, they mentioned, that because it's on blockchain, they will be able to do a lot of new functionalities that are not possible in the traditional finance world, which are very challenging and very exciting stuff. Okay, so you mentioned 4 tokens. You just want to keep things a little simpler. Can you give us like a personal rating on this token? Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most bullish.
Definitely, yeah. So Ohm, that's a clear 10 for me. Sushi and Toke, I would say Sushi a 9, Token 8, and APW also an 8.
All right, sounds good. How about our favorite friend, Cardano?
That's still the GG massive no re.
Yep,
Cardano is a GG, man.
Okay, GG, well played, Matt. I think that's it for today. Thank you for your time and thank you for the great insights. Let's keep the good conversation going in the future. Guys, please subscribe and stay tuned. I'm sure Matt's going to come back and we'll have a lot of sessions planned with him going forward. So now, Matt, I'm sorry I have to go. I have to go take care of my baby, my newborn, while playing some Diablo 2 with one hand. Matt, I will see you on the battle now.
You know it. Thanks for having me. I'm logging in.